All right, welcome Builders Call people. Great to have you with us, and thanks for your patience in the waiting room. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. And there, Casey, like a good Marine, is improvising, adapting, and overcoming. The Swananoan internet just died big time. So Casey's hopping on his phone, but certainly good to have y'all. What'd you do, Casey? You guys broke the internet.
I don't know what happened.
I thought only our marketing team did that. Now you get the famous attribution to say you broke the internet.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. How's my sound quality? Loud and clear?
Much better, yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have full roster? Full everyone's on?
Full everyone's on, and I think the good news
right.
for you is you're on. You're under the microscope for this one.
Okay. Well, I do not want to inch into the awesomeness we have on the next call with celebrating the life of Jimmy Spill Dinner and the 1-year anniversary. And we have such an awesome all-star cast, as we were talking about before our internet jumped off. So, I know last week ran out of time, wanted to hit on some time management stuff, because that's something that's always I've thought about so much over the years, and how unique business is when you kind of look at how, everyone's got the same amount of time. It's how we invest that time that actually produces the results. And I always love the duplicatableness of this business, and how, man, if I could just figure out how to do what Brian Delaney does, and if I could shadow Brian Delaney, understand exactly what he does in a day and do that, I get that. I get what he gets. And I've always just been fascinated with it. And, I think there's strategies that I can talk about for a minute. I think there's some tactical stuff as well. Strategy really is kind of the intent behind it, and tactics are more of the action in the intent. But before, I've made some notes here, because been putting some thought into this week. And I think where I would like to start before strategy is really on value, or values. What is it that you value? What is your value of time? And if it's not something that you have learned to highly value, then time management, we can get into the strategy and the tactics, but they'll be short-lived. It won't work right. If you don't truly have the motivation and the high value placed on time, then it's just going to be tricky. And so I'd like to spend just a second there, just kind of reflecting on the value of time, and you see a lot of people, you can waste money, right? We can all waste money, and we probably all have wasted money. You can get money back, but you can't waste your time. Can't get it back. And so, which do you value most or more of the two? Do you value time more, or do you value money more? And, unfortunately, I think you see in a lot of people's lives where they just kind of end up valuing money over time. And whether it's societal pressures or pressures at business, or this is the way that people roll, you often see people trading so much time in that it actually comes at a cost of their health. And then, then you have the longevity factor. You've wasted, precious time that you can't get back for money. And some of it may also have to do with the fact that, when we all start, when it comes to money and time, we all start with a bigger time bucket and no money. And so we naturally kind of start to value money over time, because we have time, we don't have money. But at some point, we have to kind of rewire our brain to understand and reverse that. And you see wealthy people do that. You see wealthy people get to the point where they all of a sudden start going, I'm going to start trying to buy time back. They reverse that relationship because now they have more money than they have time. And so, I think that's a really good place to start is what are you valuing? And the good news is it happens to be our biggest value proposition as a company. We're all about trying to figure out, how do we optimize time? How do we save time, energy, stress, all of that. And that's through systems, and that's through a lot of things. But that's it. So it's kind of, what is your value of time? And for me, and for probably many of you guys, the longer you go in business, the longer you go in life, the more you start to value time, relationships, and health. Those are the big three for me: time, relationships, and health. And I think, time really is the thing that holds health and relationships together a lot of times, right? Like, how healthy are your relationships in your life when you don't give them time? Not very healthy. How healthy is your health when you don't have time and you can't concentrate on it? And so it's starting with the value and going through that exercise of trying to pinpoint what are the things that are the most valuable to you. If you can get to that point, time management just starts to become a little easier. It becomes less of a task and more of an internal motivational drive towards figuring out how to get time back. So if we kind of we start with value. What are you valuing? And then we go into, okay, if we have our values the right way, now what is the strategy to start getting better at time management? And the strategy, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the strategy is rather simple. And you see the wealthy do this very well. And when I speak of wealthy people, I'm not just talking about billionaires, people that make a lot of money. I'm talking about, my definition of wealth is someone that has figured out both. They've got a nice financial bucket, but they also have figured out a nice time bucket. They do it by leveraging other people's time. They invest their money into other people's time. We call it OPT, right? And so you hear a lot of times people say, there's only 40 hours in a week. Well, or there's only so much time in a week, and you have this kind of scarcity mindset. And that may be the case if you haven't quite got the idea of, if I can make enough money to start to buy other people's time, then now it's not 40 hours in a week. Now I'd turn around and I have, let's say, 10 employees, 10 people working with me. Well, now I have 400 hours in a week, 400 working hours in a week. And so it starts with that basic understanding. The strategy, the basic understanding is, how do I create enough cash flow to buy other people's time? And then once I do that, the first step now is you have to start assigning an hourly net worth to the tasks that you perform and all the tasks that need to be done. So get a piece of paper out, start thinking about all of the things that you have to do and that should be done in this business and around life, and start assigning an hourly net worth to those things. What does that task actually make me? And it's a fun exercise to do, especially when you're in a business like this that has a lot of lucrative tasks, like selling, as an example. So very early on, I realized, man, I'm worth $100 an hour when I'm in the field. I take my income that I'm making from selling insurance, helping families, and I back it out based on how many hours a week I'm working between booking appointments, sitting with clients, getting the applications in, all of that. 20, 25 hours divided by the X, and it's about $100 an hour. And then I start going, okay, well, what are the items that I'm doing in the week or in the day that I could pay someone else 10 or 12 or $15 an hour to do? And would that now allow me to do twice as much, of that $100 an hour work? And so you have to start, though, understanding what tasks are worth and then how to prioritize those things. And I think another really good exercise you can do there is this: if you were to look at your day and say, if I could only work 2 hours today or 3 hours today, what would I do in those 2 to 3 hours? What task would go in those 2 to 3 hours? And generally, that list, that short list, will speak to you, because those are the things that generally are the highest priority, highest hourly net worth, generally the things that probably fill you up and give you energy because you're in your strength zone, those are the things you got to figure out how to do more of and start to backfill everything else. And again, for Brandon and I, it was field work. That's why we were $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a week, like clockwork, $20,000, $25,000 a month. And that's the ATM that gave us the cash flow to now be able to look at our priority list and say, these are the things we can now delegate to someone working 40 hours a week. And now I get to do more of this $100 an hour work. And all of a sudden I keep doing this exercise and I keep this in front of me. And 6 months later, I'm worth $200 an hour because now I've figured out how to duplicate myself in the sales world. And I've started to build the agency and I've started to create overrides. And now in that work, I'm worth $200, $300 an hour. Fast forward a year, 2, 3 years from now you're worth $1,000 an hour. You're just doing more of that strategy. And things start to feel a little different. All of a sudden you start, like, it feels a little weird to drop off and pick up the dry cleaning when you're worth $1,000 or $2,000 an hour. Things just start to change in how you look and you value time. And it's because you've gotten good at leverage. You've gotten good at figuring out how to put people in a place, and start to leverage those hours. So that's kind of the main strategy of it. You're constantly just trying to fire yourself from the last job. How do I continue to delegate, to elevate? And it's not as simple, just as a side note, it's not as simple as you go out and you create some cash flow and you start to hire employees, because as we all know, this is a people business, not just in hiring of agents, but actually especially when it comes to hiring staff, whether, administrative staff, people behind the scenes, because you may be cut from a little bit of a different cloth than them. You might think a little bit differently than them. And so one of our Brandon and I's biggest growth journeys over the last, especially probably 5 or 10 years has been, to really understand what it is that motivates, how to create the right atmosphere on the corporate side of things so that you can continue to create that movement without you. And you have to get good at growing yourself. We say that, but it's not as easy as just investing money. You have to be able to attract and retain good people. Good people don't just want a paycheck, good people need and want and thrive with good leadership. So you have to be a good leader to do this. You have to develop yourself to get traction in time management, because again, at its core, it's about people, surrounding yourself with people. And that leads us to me to, and again, I want to keep track of time here, to something that's overlooked in the time management bucket, which is energy management. When you start to understand, how am I showing up in this world with relationships that matter? It's not as important. Time management's not nearly as important as energy management when you are in a people business like this. Am I taking care of myself? Do I feel good about myself? Am I actually working on my health? Do I have good habits? Can I shed the bad ones? Am I getting enough time doing the things that fill me up, so that when I do show up, I'm pouring from a full cup? You can't pour from an empty cup. And so how are you filling your energy up? Brian Williamson is so good at hitting on that 70-30 rule. If you're not managing your schedule and your energy and your time right, and you're not in that ideal world where 70% of your time and energy is spent on things that they may not all fill you up, but at least 70% of that schedule is in a spot where it's like your sweet spot, where you're actually contributing, versus just kind of sitting there like I'm just going through the motions. Like, you've got to be in that 70-30 world where 70% of your time is in your sweet spot. It's what you are meant to do. That can start to drain your energy. Other things around energy, to me, take a break. create space in your calendar. And again, it takes work and time and investment to do that, but you've got to start understanding the value of space and time in your calendar, especially if you're trying to operate at a higher level. That space gives you, it's the creativity that you need to keep rolling in the business. It's the energy refill that you need so that when you do show up, you actually have something to contribute. I think we underestimate the value of taking a week off sometimes and just unplugging. And again, you got to get yourself in the right spot to be able to do that. But man, there's nothing that fills me up better than a week off, just taking that week, trying to unplug from it. I come back so energized, so ready to kind of dig into things when I do that the right way. So don't underestimate the value of that. Also, start to analyze and look at the relationships, not just in your life, but in your business when it comes to energy. What relationships are draining to you in business and in life? What relationships fill you up in business and in life? Do more of the things that fill that energy cup up when it comes to relationships. Do less of the ones that drain you. Get away from those relationships as fast as you can. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're starting to make those investments and you start to hire people around the business front, you can turn around one of the landmines of getting in this world where you're starting to try to buy and create leverage other people's time as you end up hiring the wrong person. And now all of a sudden, like, you're having to manage them too. And it's taking more time and energy because you've just hired the wrong person. So you've got to be slower to hire, make sure you're really getting the right person. But if you feel like you don't, like, you've got to figure out how to let that person go as quickly as possible, or put them in a better position, put them in a different position, something that they're actually useful at for you. But that kind of stuff can absolutely not just drain the time bucket, but can drain the energy bucket. So as far as tactics go, I would say one of the best things you can do is use guidance from a mentor. Why? Well, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you're going to create work, projects, could be a contest, could be an event, a series of events, could be a podcast, could be whatever it is. And Brad and I have done that many times. We've created work for ourselves without going through the motion and and maybe even seeking the guidance of a mentor to say, is this worth the rub? Is this ROI worth it? If what I really value is time. And sometimes it is worth it, but that's where I think making sure that you're counseling with someone that has what you want, right? Someone that has that time bucket full, if that's what you're valuing. And so I think that's a big one.
Well, the good thing is,
make sure that those things that you're investing in, I think we'll get some background noise. I don't know who that is.
I think it's Trey. Go ahead and mute Trey. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
sorry about that.
The old miss mute button. That's fine. So counsel with a mentor, find someone that's got that scenario that you like. And when you have that idea, when you have that project, when you have that, event that you want to do, whatever it is, just go through the exercise of making sure that you have weighed out the cost of it. How much is this going to not just financially cost me, but how much is this ongoing potentially going to cost me in time? Is this something that now is I'm expected to do annually, or now am I expected to do it quarterly? Analyze those things, counsel with your mentor on those things, because likely they've probably made some similar bad investments that ended up costing them more than they actually wanted. So that's a big one. Tactically, another thing that I always did, which just, again, these things I think come naturally when you learn to value things the right way, is a to-do list. I heard a TikTok the other day and it made me feel pretty good about it, which was like, it was something about, someone asked the top wealthiest, some of the wealthiest people in the country, what, one of the common denominators they all said was to-do list. And I can remember early on, it was probably because I felt like there was always so much to do, and there always is so much to do, is get that. For me, it was just a little piece of paper that I could easily fold up and put in my back pocket. And I just always had a running list of to-dos. And if you pay attention to that to-do list, and start kind of looking at each of those things, is this something that just has to be done? Is this something that had to be, is like something that I've been delaying? So I almost kind of put like visual arrows in my mind on what those items were. Is this something that if just has to be done, it doesn't really move things forward? So it may even be an arrow that points backwards, or just like an even arrow. What are the things on that list that point forward? What are the things on that list that force growth, or that cause growth to happen in business? But this, just having a to-do list close by, it also is nice too, because it gave me something. You can do this on your phone too, and it's kind of how I've transitioned. Now I just have ongoing running list, to-do list on my phone and my notes. But the other thing that having something like that does for me is it allows me to start kind of brain dumping the thoughts that I have during a day. And it could be a piece of content, something that we're talking about right now in time management. Could be, been having conversations with my team, and I keep hearing things that are a little bit troubling around this or that, or things that could be worked on, or things that could be done better, or landmines that I've hit in the past that could fix a situation. I make sure I kind of have a spot easily accessible that I can write those things down, because if you're anything like me, those things fall out of your head. But that's what my huddle ups, that's what Brandon and I did for our huddle ups and for conference calls. It's just an ongoing list of things to do's, but also to talk about, things to share, things to hit there. So that's a lot of my notes, guys. I got 3 minutes left. Any of you guys want to jump on? Questions, comments, fill in some of the blanks I've left out here.
Well, you swept the World Series with that call, because I've gotten more texts and comments. That so good, Casey. As always, your ability to bring the deep insights down to the bottom shelf. But love the energy management piece. There's 4 kinds of energy. There's your physical energy, which is a question of like, how much do I have in the tank, right? We've got to manage our physical energy. There's our emotional energy, which is the quality of our energy. Is it positive, negative? You talked about those energy vampires that come to suck our blood that we need to sort of shake off. Then there's our mental energy, which gives us focus in what we're doing. And then there's spiritual energy, which is our passion, our purpose, and all the goodness we're going to hear a lot about next week too, with an exciting rollout. But I think managing energy, right? Energy management trumps time management. And I think you nailed it. And thinking through those practicalities you gave us, I mean, just so good. And having that way to jump in, really good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, buddy.
Well done.
It's fun stuff. That's our sweet spot, man.
The question that I've seen a few times is, and I think you can hit on this, it's things have changed so much from when we were in the field, but from a time management perspective, any last parting tips you would give to brand new agents? It's so different now with Switchboard and with digital leads and with everything. It used to be a lot clearer how to kind of compartmentalize your work week and those, for all the benefits that Switchboard brings, and working leads in a new way, helping clients in a new way, for all the benefits that brings. I think it certainly can bring some challenges to people that were accustomed to doing this on this day and this on another day. And so,
I think it's the same thing. I think it just comes down to time blocking. And there's some really good books and stuff on time blocks and how to do that. But if Brandon likely is that, and some of these leaders on here would have some really good stuff on this as well, because you guys are in the thick of kind of that transformation around. But I my gut is that it's just, instead of like Brandon, you and I were like, we had 4 or 5, 6 hour time blocks. This is my time where I'm booking appointments. This is my time where I'm running appointments. And now I think those time blocks are just shorter, but it still probably takes some intention around what is that there's an actual block of time. And those time blocks, again, may be shorter and more frequent because you're having to get on the phone more so that you're not letting leads age out, et cetera. But I still think it's probably comes down to being a really good time blocker.
I like it.
Good stuff. I'm seeing some really good questions. These builders calls are too short, aren't they? Especially when you spend the first 5 minutes getting kicked off the internet.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're definitely having some network problems over here. I don't know if it's Swannanoa. This is one of those situations where Pope would say, pull the string tighter. So
exactly.
We should try to we can pull the string tighter. It'll work. But yeah, good stuff. And I imagine that Cicely and Jordan and Trey and Delaney can hit on some of this as well. Well, hello, Pam.
Hello.
Pam's joining me because her internet is not working at all in her office, and we have some announcements to go over. So last question on time management. Do you guys think that we could maybe create our own time zone where daylight savings is year round so that we don't have to go through this nonsense of it getting dark at 5 o'clock?
I'm voting for that.
We've talked about creating, like, they've created digital currency, cryptocurrency. We've talked about creating a digital time zone where, the old fancy Rolexes may not work, but you get this little Jesse right here, and it can always be the perfect time. So instead of like losing an hour of sleep or gaining an hour of sleep, maybe every day you only lose like a minute or you gain a minute, but we keep the sun at that optimal spot.
I love it.
Guy. Right. Of course, what's optimal to you and I may not be optimal to everyone. If they say kids are walking to school in the snow and it's cold and dark outside, maybe that toughens them up, though. It's good for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Man, it's been a while since I've been on a conference call. Let me make sure that I remember how to do this.
Welcome back.
So thank you. Here we go. As I said, we've got managing partner, Mr. Brian Delaney, senior VPs, Cicely and Ayers Newsom, regional agency director, Trey Aldridge.